Today I'm talking to Diana Mills, who is very well known for being a faithful friend and a long-term member of South London Interfaith Group. And perhaps, Diana, you'd like to start by telling us when you joined us.
Well, I've been thinking about it, and it was about the turn of the century. It was about 20 odd years ago. And the very first meeting I went to was in a church where I met Sarah Thorley, and that was my beginning.
All right. Well, she's a very important person in the whole story. I've already talked to her. So what about some of the other people that were there at the beginning when you came?
Well, Alan, of course, Alan and Ivor. And my best memories really are in those days. We were meeting in All Saints, Battersea, and in that wonderful space, which was a church, a meeting house, a synagogue. It was certainly an all faithful place. And yes, and we used to then go for lunches. That started, and each of us would take it in turns, and we would cook the lunch. I had to cook the lunch there because I lived quite far away and had a couple of trains to catch to get there. So I would get there early to cook the lunch together with, there were about 4 of us in those early days, but several of those died off, and I think there's just 2 of us now, one in an old people's home. That was Mary Perilla, who still loves to have news, and she's going to be 100 next year. And I shall get her to write some of her memories down for us.
That'd be lovely. And obviously you've often told us about faithful friends. Perhaps you'd like to tell us about that. Yes,
well, that really started because it was, I was trying to remember the date. It was probably about 2007. Chris Hewer came and did an Understanding Islam, 10-week course of Understanding Islam, which was a turning point really for me. My husband had died recently, and it was a way forward for me very much to get very involved in this. He's such an amazing teacher, and it certainly led me out of a dark place doing that course. So that was, I'm very grateful to South London Interfaith for that. And we've become good friends since then, and he's done many courses for us since then. And from that, I met Rashid Laher, and again, another very, very dear friend, he and his family. And because we both live in the same area, we decided it would be really nice. Chris came over and did some courses for us over here in Ham, and several people were interested. So we thought this was a good leaping off point to start a little offshoot from South London Interfaith. I've always thought that Faithful Friends was a baby of South London Interfaith. And yes, and we struggle a little bit. It's hard work. There were 3 of us. There's a Roman Catholic friend called Brendan, who is sort of fringe. He likes to hear about South London Interfaith, but he doesn't really participate. But he was certainly part of the founding of Faithful Friends with Rashid and myself. And we still do an interfaith walk every year, which again was inspired by Sarah's little walks that she does. And
right.
So, yes.
That's great. And what about other people in that area who've joined Chris Hewer's talks and so on?
Yes, well, I still keep in touch with them and let them know when he still comes over and does day courses for us on various parts of Understanding Islam. You know, we'll look at women, or we'll look at law, or various things. He's always very, very willing to do anything, and so we must have had a lot of people who've passed through, and I always let everybody know what's going on as far as what Chris is doing. Yes, so which means I touch churches, and I touch the mosque, and I touch the synagogues, we've had people from all those places. but I haven't really made good on the walks. We visited the Buddhists and we visited the Sikhs, but apart from that, we don't really have very much interaction. It's very much Christian and Muslim in this area. We have, because of the contact, I think.
Yes.
So we've got work to do. We've got work to do there, but the walks are the helpful thing.
And there's a relationship with Richmond, isn't there, as well?
Yes, but that again, with the synagogue, we have, that's really the only relationship we, sorry. That's really the only contact I have there. I get invited to things, but one of the courses, Robert Bieber came. He's a very nice man. He's a good contact there. So I let them know everything that's going on.
Yes.
But it's very much Kingdom-based, and as I say, it's mosque really because of Rashid, mosque Christianity-based.
It does strike me that the group's meetings, monthly meetings, have been a wonderful place to share information. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. And that's what I love best about it, is the fact that people share what's happening all over South London. And I think that's really helpful to know how broad the base is, not to have to go to everything, but at least knowing what's going on and knowing that the thing is alive, which is really important, I think.
Yes. And what do you think has been successful?
Goodness. Well, I think the lunches are brilliant because it just brings everybody together. Without the lunch, it wouldn't, and there's no demand in the lunch. That's what I think is the success of it. I like the fact that it's open, that people come. We have the lovely prayer, and then we have get on with the food and the chat, and it's nice to have a speaker occasionally, but it is that interaction one with another, and the fact that one's got to know other people from the other side of London and of different faiths. And lovely, when I walk into that room for lunch and get greeted, it's so lovely, and we all know each other's names, and don't really know people, they're all acquaintances, but there's some lovely bond there, just being in the room. And I think it is just being together. We don't have to do too much, just share what we've been up to and any thoughts we have, any concerns. That's good as well. I think the fact that, you know, things going on in the world, people have shared their feelings, and because so often it's coming from a religious base, and it's good to hear from the faith of the person that perhaps things are happening for. I just think it's a wonderful coming together place, and it doesn't need to do too much, really. That's what I feel.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And I think that within that atmosphere of a homely atmosphere, really, one is able to address some of the really difficult problems that we've encountered over the last, well, we've had all sorts of crises that have affected faith communities.
Absolutely. Yes, I think it's brilliant for that. And I think it shouldn't get too structured. You know, I think it is the actual free flow of it all that is its gift.
Yeah.
If you know, the extra things that happen, you know, there have been things that have come out, groups that have come out. I remember a time when, for a while, a small group of us were meeting in Alan and Iva's house every so often to discuss a specific subject, and that was something that came out of South African Faith Group, but the group itself remained this free-flowing place, and I think that's the lovely thing, that, you know, you can hive off in certain groups, and which is lovely. Yes.
And how do you see the future?
Well, how do I see the future? I I think as long as we keep the numbers are good, the numbers seem to be keeping up when we've done it all online now, so know more about how many people are involved. But I think, as I say, I think the lunches and the freedom of information and the caring and the sharing that goes on there without any designated heading, I think people can come and go as they please. There's no feeling, oh dear, I've missed a meeting this month. I mean, one's always welcome, and if you're busy that month, then you don't have to feel guilty about not going. And I think that's the preciousness of it, and I wouldn't want to alter that. But I think that you're already beginning to have little things coming out of it. There's the discussion group that's formed, and as I say, there were a couple of things where we met in Ellen and Ivor's place. I think that to continue in that way, it will find its own new way, I think, with those small groups. But I wouldn't fool around with the once a month lunches. I'd keep those fresh.
Given, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I was thinking more about how to engage young people, because obviously a lunchtime meeting on a Thursday is hardly the best place to
really
get youngsters.
Sitting in my own comfortable place thinking, well, I think the younger members we do have some younger members, don't we? We do have some, it's with everything, it's young people, isn't it? That
they're a bit few and far between, let's be honest.
It's true. I mean, we're doing just the same with our local PSC group, because we're all old and grey and
exactly.
Not, counting them at days, really. And we managed to get 2 young people, and their thinking is so totally radical and different, which is exciting, but that's quite challenging as well for the rest of us who are nicely comfortably installed. So I don't know, inviting somebody from there are plenty of youth groups, aren't there? So there must be something in Brixton groups in Brixton that could be.
Yes, we've had people who organise for youth, yes, in Lambeth, and I've had contact in Croydon with schools. Yes. But not directly, I have to say, but there is a contact with schools. It is difficult to get into schools, there's no doubt about that. It's much more difficult. And probably the answer is online, because putting on an event online, which would involve young people, like a quiz or something like that, might be more successful than inviting them to a meeting. Because I think one issue is sort of like, you don't want to put people on the spot. But I think it's a gradual process. I mean, for instance, this week I met a young Jane who lives in Croydon, and he's going to come to one of our meetings. Online. So I mean, that's a great start, and I just think we need to pick up every opportunity that we get to involve young people, and also I think the walk is a very good way of people across generations going together, and like taking my grandson on a walk is a very, very good way of introducing him to different places of worship. So that's a very important role, I think.
And things like picnics are always good. That thing is do we need to change the time of the meeting? Do we need to make it available for younger people to be able to be with us?
You need to talk about that. I wouldn't change the Thursday pattern, because I think it's kind of ingrained.
Yes, and I think
put in something else. Yeah, I've put something else in. I think also a better way of approaching is actually asking the young people what time suits you. Yes, as you say, they have a totally different approach. I mean, even something like Facebook and Zoom is a bit old-fashioned to them. They're much more likely to be on their phones and doing TikTok or something. So it's kind of we're
Learn
a
that.
different world. So we need to get into that world somehow, get our message into that world. And I see the future as exciting because I think that the young people I've met are not so ingrained in their particular tradition as
No.
we were. They're much more, especially if they've gone to mixed schools, they don't really go into the whole thing about
No.
which church are you in or what
Yeah.
faith are you.
Yeah.
It's not a major issue for them. So,
That's what we
and
still.
also, they've all had, they should have had that religious education at school that we never had. So that should have made a difference too. Mm.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to tell us about?
Let me just have a look at my notes. Yes, I did. One lovely thing was visit to Chennai with Alan and Ivor a few years ago. That was special. That was because of the interfaith group. That was very, very special to have that experience. And it was interesting because they just had a hurricane or a tsunami or something hit them. And it was quite battered still when we got there. So walking around the streets with flattened trees, walls broken down, and just gave one a brief understanding of, well, what it must be like in India now, especially down in Chennai with the pandemic. Yes, I mean, that was very special. And I remember when we used to go, in the early days when we were still meeting in All Saints, often a small group of us from St. Richard's would go and join Alan and I at the mass they had there on a Sunday. And they were wonderful. They had children doing everything. Children did absolutely as much as was possible. Apart from the consecration, they actually did everything else. And they, of course, Ivor was teaching the reading, and my goodness, those children knew how to read, and you could hear every word. That was something special. Now, that was young people. That was just getting involved, I think, giving people a chance to claim something for themselves, particularly young people, It was very, very moving. I just thought that really for me when I was thinking about you today. And that was lovely to be able to go down there and be part of that. And that was all through the group. What else? Well, thanks. We used to report back after the service on a Sunday to our own church what we had been doing and what the group, and each of us gave a different slant on what had been happening in the interfaith world. But most of those people that were coming have died.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the whole thing at the church, that particular church, has changed now, and the whole, it's not like it was. It was very fertile soil at one point, but then things change. It's like a kaleidoscope. You take the pieces and they fall down in different places. So, but that was a rich moment. Everything was going the right way. People would listen, gave us opportunities to speak. Again, I think it is the sharing that's important. And I had my lovely friendship with Ganesh. Yes. Lal, who I wouldn't have known if it had not been for this group. What a special man. So that was also a gift from the group to have that friendship.
Yes, yeah, I think that's lovely. And can I just clarify which church that was that you were going to?
It was in Ham, Little St. Richard's Church in Ham.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was very, very lively at that particular point.
Yes, yes.
but as I say, things change, and it's the kaleidoscope twists, and it was very rich, and it was very open for what we had to say. So that was lovely.
And what about the Peace Pagoda? Because that was very important as well, wasn't it?
Oh yes, and those still those peace walks happen, don't they? At 6th and the 11th of August. I think those moments are really important to remember. You know, those big dates in our calendar, world atrocities. I mean, I think it's important they're not forgotten, and that's always such a moving thing to be part of. The walk, and there were services as well at the Quaker Meeting House. Remember, they have where people got people who survived Hiroshima.
Oh, right. Okay. I didn't know about that.
Yes. That's something yes, I mean, there's a lot going on that's all sort of we can tap into, can't we? It is about letting each other know. And I think that's a vital part of South London Interfaith Group, is the sharing, the letting each other know what's going on.
Yes. I think also I was thinking about people like Tina, and the lovely lady used to come and sell her cards.
Oh,
yes. So I think that kind of element to that lunch was very good, because you not only had that, but you also had people coming from like Lambeth Council and so on to tell us about things that were going on locally. So it was more like, it was not only information, but also some action, actually doing things to support each other. So I think that's been very important as well. Well, I think, thank you, Diana. It's been most interesting. You've raised several things that I hadn't thought about, actually, which perhaps I didn't know about. So that was good.
I don't think there's anything that I've missed. No, not really.
Okay. Well, thanks so much.
It's been lovely to remember all that. I mean, it's sort of shaken up my old head as well. But I love the group, and I'm so glad to be part of it, and the friends I've made from it. Lovely. Yes. So thank you for asking.